Little warning before we start here. Some technical difficulties. Jake's mic is out of commission, so his audio is a little rough. We apologize.
At the outbreak of the Revolutionary War, Benedict Arnold participated in the capture of the British garrison of Fort Ticonderoga in 1775. In 1776, he hindered a British invasion of New York at the Battle of Lake Champlain. The following year, he played a crucial role in bringing about the surrender of the British Army at Saratoga. In 1779, he entered into secret negotiations with the British, agreeing to turn over the U.S. post at West Point in return for money and command in the British Army. Why? Why did he become the first Benedict Arnold that we know today? I'm Jake Storielli, and this is Laughs from the Past.
That was a 10 out of 10.
That's a one and done, folks. That's a Ja Morant.
that was exceptional. I really liked the two words. I really liked Champlain and crucial.
Crucial. I saw crucial coming, and I was picturing how they say it in Harry Potter, like the Crucius. I was like, all right, I'm going for that.
All right. Well, this is Season 3 of Laughs from the Past, which is Historical Mysteries. This is episode 11, and it is all about Benedict Arnold. And why did this motherfucker turn traitor? Everyone knows the term Benedict Arnold. No one really knows the actual guy.
I haven't met the gentleman.
Yeah. I didn't know that he was so accomplished on the rebels or American side of the war. Like in your intro, like I didn't know that he had the full trust of Washington, and he was like way up there.
Yeah, that's true. No one's. I don't think in a history class Benedict Arnold was ever brought up.
No, it's kind of just a term, at this point.
Like, was Benedict Arnold ever? I mean, you were a history major, so that's a little different. But like in high school, was Benedict Arnold ever mentioned?
If it was, I think and there were spies like Benedict Arnold, a famous spy.
Okay, so it's just like a throw-in where you point. Okay,
yeah.
But yeah, it's more so like in movies and pop culture.
Do you know where Benedict Arnold's from?
No.
Norwich,
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Nice, man. We got one.
It's bad luck for Norwich. Terrible luck.
They lost the Navigators too.
Are you worried that you're going to come out of this on Benedict Arnold's side?
No. I think that plays into some of my character traits, which, I mean, I'd be a little disappointed, but I'd understand.
Okay. You ready? I'm just going to start reading from my book here. For most of America's famous turncoats, Aaron Burr, Alger Hiss, the Rosenbergs, hey, we know them, there is at least some question, in some cases, much doubt as to whether they were guilty. In the case of Benedict Arnold, there is no doubt. His name has justly become a synonym for traitor. Nor is there any doubt as to the magnitude of his treachery. Arnold commanded the American forces at West Point, and his plan was to turn over the fort there to the British. Had he done so, the British might easily have captured George Washington, who was nearby Peaks Hill meeting with Marquis de Lafayette.
I gotta stop you for a second because there's something on my head I don't want to forget.
Okay, what is it?
Benedict Arnold's the number 2 all-time traitor.
Who's number 1? Judas?
Judas.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there anyone even in their league? That's my follow-up question.
Maybe in another country or society, like because Benedict
Kevin
Arnold's
Durant.
American. Because Kevin, the British may see Benedict as a hero.
That's actually really true. That's
he
interesting.
saw the
No, you
light.
can't be a hero at your heart. If you're known as a traitor, you can't be a hero. Well, it depends the magnitude. No, because I mean he didn't win them anything. They still lost, right?
Yeah, but he saw the light and the good and tried to help them.
Yeah, I don't know. I need like a top 3 traitor, and I'm just missing whoever the third is.
We'll figure it out. Well, what about,
right.
I thought I had one.
Okay.
Even if Washington had escaped, the British would have controlled the Hudson River crossing. This would have enabled them to cut off supplies to Washington's army, which was already underfed and underarmed. The American Revolution, in short, might very well have failed. Wow, Benedict.
Wow.
Playing for keeps. Yet, if it's clear what Arnold did or tried to do, why he did it is much less clear. Arnold himself, in a proclamation published soon after he switched sides, said the war had been a defensive one until the French joined in the combination. Then his eyes had been opened and he saw how dangerous were the insidious offers of France, the enemy of the Protestant faith. But few then or later bought this explanation. Never before had Arnold indicated any qualms about the French. Besides, the language of Arnold's proclamation was suspiciously similar to much else written by the loyalist writer William Smith. Clearly, this was little more than propaganda. To understand what really motivated Benedict Arnold, therefore, historians have to look elsewhere, and the obvious place to start was Arnold's life prior to his treason.
Okay.
Dude tried to spin it on he hated the French. The French are on our side now? Fuck this. I'm out. Which I get.
It's a strong spin. It's not a bad play.
I thought we were fighting for America here, and now I got a bunch of Frenchies running around my camp speaking French. I'm out. They speak English on the other side and only English.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what's a good equivalent to that. I'm trying to think of like if your most hated football player joins your team or something like that. And you're just like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't root for this guy.
I hate Antonio Brown. He's on the Raiders now. I can't do it.
I can't do it.
I guess the other odd thing going through my head, which is I guess my role in here, is I was trying to think back in the late 1700s, one of my, where my head's at often. Like, imagine looking around and being like, one of the people might be a traitor to the country.
Yeah, I mean, like, you just had to trust everyone. Anyone can be a traitor anywhere.
Anyone could be a traitor. I was trying to think of what could even be a common day comparison, and I think it would be like if you were into politics and you had a buddy that you were like thought was secretly on the right or the left.
Yeah, because what do you even do? Like, how do you sniff out a traitor, and then like, what do you do after that? You just stop talking to them?
I don't know. Like in the 1700s, you probably had, like, if you brought a traitor to the authorities, you were probably like a hero. You probably got paid.
They probably didn't even need any proof. This dude's a traitor. How do you know? I fucking sensed it.
Yeah, I mean, look at this guy.
That's enough for us. We'll take him in.
Look at that feather in his cap.
All right. So by far the most striking aspect of his life prior to turning traitor was that Arnold had been a genuine hero of the Revolution. Along with Ethan Allen, in May 1775, he had captured Fort Ticonderoga on the northern New York frontier. With the fort came cannon and powder crucial to the American war effort. In September 1775, he'd led 1,100 men on a wilderness expedition from Massachusetts to Quebec City. Though 40% of his men were lost to death or desertion, he besieged a city manned by twice his number of troops until May 1776, when 10,000 British reinforcements forced the Americans to retreat. That's crazy. How do you do that?
I mean, Benedict gave them info, right?
No, this is when he was loyal to the cause, and he took his men and besieged the British camp with half of the men the British had.
Oh, okay.
He was like, they're just explaining how awesome he was. Next, during the summer of 1776, Arnold supervised the construction of a fleet on Lake Champlain. Under his command, the makeshift navy was largely destroyed, but managed to hold out until winter set in and forced the British to return to Canada. Another good thing. A year later, when the British again swept down from Canada, Arnold led the crucial charge at the Battle of Saratoga that precipitated the British surrender there. Twice wounded, Arnold was honored and trusted by George Washington for his bravery and leadership. He was the man.
Wow.
He was one of the best. Man. That's why the British tapped him on the shoulder. You're really good at this. What are they offering you?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of gone from modern day to now I'm in Game of Thrones mode.
Oh, okay.
Like, hey, I'm doing good stuff over here. If you want daddy, hook it up. Kind of the Bronze story. Give me a hotter wife and a bigger castle. I'll do anything.
Could be. I think there is a love story that comes into play here.
Ooh.
And yet with each victory came frustration and disappointment. At Ticonderoga, how do you say that?
Ticonderoga.
At
Pencil.
What's that?
Like the pencil?
Okay. At Ticonderoga, Arnold clashed with Ethan Allen. I didn't know Ethan Allen was a name from the Revolutionary War.
It's not. It's a furniture store.
Each had independently conceived of the attack on the fort, and each felt he should lead the charge. No, that was my idea. No, that was my idea.
No, that was my idea.
I'm going to lead it just because it was my idea. No, I thought of it before you. That was life. Arnold had the official backing of Massachusetts. Allen was backed by Connecticut and most of the troops. Their compromise, a joint command. Yeah, that's like very simple. We're both on the same side. Why don't we both command it? Doesn't seem like a time to
tag team back again.
Doesn't seem like a time to be petty. A joint command was an uneasy one that was further marred by Allen's subsequent charges that Arnold had overstepped his orders and misappropriated funds. Arnold's invasion of Canada, though heroic, failed to capture Quebec. His enemies were quick to label it a failure and to accuse him of confiscating provisions and materials from Montreal merchants for his own profit. Even the Battle of Lake Champlain, which in retrospect is seen to have bought the American army the time it needed to prepare for its defense of Saratoga, was at the time seen only as a naval defeat, and Arnold's decisive victory at Saratoga came in defiance of his commanding officer, Horatio Gates.
Horatio Sands. I've got a question, and I don't know if you're getting there. So, Revolutionary War. So, 1776, we signed the Declaration of Independence. We become our own country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the time frame of the Revolutionary War?
I think it was like 4 years it lasted.
So, like 76 to 80? Or like pre-76?
No, 1776 is when they signed the document.
Right.
And they said, hey, we're independent now. And Britain was like, no, you're not. We're going to come fight you. And then they had to win the battle. Wow, it was much longer than I thought. It lasted till 1783.
Okay, 1783. So, yeah, we're talking, all right.
7 years.
7 years, like that. Okay. All right. The theory I have going through my head, and I know there's some power and status stuff that's going to come too, but, I mean, wasn't there definitely a little bit like, hey, we signed the Declaration, we're free now, and then everyone's like, yo, British is going to come bust you guys. Like, you can't do that, right?
Yeah, they knew that war. They knew by signing it that they were going to war.
Right, and if you were placing bets at the time, I mean...
Oh, yeah, it was all Britain, yeah.
It was like what was it? It'd be like a second-round game, like a 1 versus a 9 seed, something like that.
Kind of, but it was interesting because it was basically a civil war because so many people in the colonies were like, I don't want to do this. You guys are crazy. Britain rules the whole fucking world, and we're going to poke that bear? I'm with them. So they were called loyalists. It was rebels versus loyalists. I mean, there were a lot of British that got sent over. There was a lot of people that were living there.
Okay.
All right. So basically what this comes down to is like Arnold was the man. He did all those things, but everyone kind of hated him. He must have had a shitty personality because all of his people that he ran with didn't want to give him credit for anything and didn't like
That's a really interesting twist that he goes down as an all-time bad guy traitor. And maybe it's just because he was a dick, because I'm sure there's plenty of other traitors out there.
Yeah. He just, like, they omitted his name. Horatio Gates omitted his name from a report because he knowingly, like, didn't like him.
Right. That's really interesting, because I'm sure that at the time there was other traitors that took either, money or houses or land or women or whatever it was. But because they weren't dicks, everyone was kind of like, well, I get it. They gave him a castle and a wife. Like, he had a good time. But because Arnold was a dick, okay, I like that theory.
So, understandably, Arnold was bitter. He must have been further shocked and angered when Congress promoted 5 others to Major General, each one of whom was far less experienced than Arnold, instead of the renown he felt he deserved. I don't think I'm saying that word right. He found himself defending himself against Ethan Allen's charges that he had misappropriated funds. So he's busting his ass to help the Americans, the rebels, the patriots, and all of his colleagues don't like him. So they're like, nah, dude, that wasn't really that helpful. It was cool that you did it, but it wasn't, the main cool thing.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Since Arnold's injuries left him unfit for field duty, in 1778, Washington appointed him military governor of Philadelphia. Here again, Arnold soon found himself at odds with other revolutionary leaders. He closed the city's shops to inventory all captured goods and was promptly accused of doing so to line his own pockets. I don't know. It seems like he's closing shops all over the place. He closed the shops in Quebec, and people were mad at him for it. Ethan Allen was like, nah, dude, you did that just to line your own pockets. The first thing he does when he gets to Philadelphia is close all the shops to check for stolen goods, and then he's going to take that's stolen. It's mine now.
Abusing his power.
I'm kind of on Ethan Allen's side. Like, at least be smart enough, Benedict, to know people are going to see this in poor light.
Yeah.
Then he was accused of using army wagons to haul private goods to Philadelphia and granting an illegal pass for a ship, again for his own profit. Arnold was indignant. In May 1779, he wrote Washington that he had little expected to meet the ungrateful returns I have received from my countrymen. So he's snake bitten. He's mad.
Yeah. We've got a motive.
In December, the charges against Arnold culminated in a court-martial. Wow, so they were like, I think he was doing this shit.
Yeah.
The results of which must have frustrated both Arnold and his accusers. The court found there was insufficient evidence to convict him on most of the counts, but did find him guilty of 2 misdemeanors. It recommended that Washington reprimand him, which he did. That's putting a lot of, balls in Washington's court. I'm trying to win a war versus the British right now, and you're leaving me in charge of reprimanding Benedict Arnold? Can't you do it?
A guy who's, I know he's doing some dick stuff, but, he's also done a lot of good, so can we just kind of figure this out?
Yeah, I'm trying to win a war here. I'm the general. I don't have time to think of a punishment that properly fits the misdoings that you couldn't even find.
Hey, let's maybe do this after the war.
Was Arnold's indignation justified? Was he a patriot or a profiteer? Most historians have concluded he was both. The revolution offered him a chance for fame and fortune, and he wasn't about to turn away either. There is little doubt that he used his positions, especially as military governor of Philadelphia, to further his money-making schemes. But his contributions to the revolutionary effort were undeniable, as was his courage under fire. Arnold must have felt unappreciated, and this must have been a factor in his decision to switch sides. I mean, I'm sure. I buy all that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this guy is good as at what he does. He's got one of the deadly sins, Jim. He's got the greed, man.
Greed. Now this goes on to say, what specifically pushed him over the edge? For 160 years, most historians assumed it was the court-martial when Washington, one of his great supporters, turned on Arnold. Then in 1941, Carl Van Doren took a careful look at the recently discovered letters from the files of the British headquarters. To his surprise, he found that Arnold had been negotiating with the British before the court-martial. As early as 1779, there are letters between the British commander-in-chief, Henry Clinton, and his adjunct, General Jean-André, discussing Arnold's terms for turning traitor. The correspondence between André and Clinton, as well as between Arnold and André, also made very clear that Arnold was looking for money. Specifically, he wanted 20,000 pounds if his plan to turn over his new command at West Point succeeded, and 10,000 pounds if it failed. Wow. Hedging his bet.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
I got to stop you quickly because it's something I can't get past. Is that guy's name Jean-André?
John Andre.
So I know, like, nicknames over time have become, like, less ridiculous. Like, one of your favorite baseball players' nicknames of all time is Ugly Johnny Dickshot.
Yeah. Ugly Johnny Dickshot. Yeah. It's great.
If people weren't calling Jean-André Jeandre, I'm out.
Jeandre?
Jeandre. Like, I need that.
Jeandre. The Andre's got a little tilde over the E.
Jeandre. That'd be a good new music artist name.
Jeandre.
Jeandre.
So, Andre countered with an offer of 6,000 pounds. But you're right. Benedict Arnold just had greed. Like he was in the war for money opportunities. What he did might have been helping the British, but money seems to be backing everything he did.
Yeah. That's his only motivation.
So he goes to the British. I want 20,000 if it works, 10,000 if it fails. And they just say, we'll give you 6,000 straight up.
Yeah, just do it. Here's some money. Which at that point, Benedict, like, take the money and run and just be a good guy.
Yeah, take the money and don't do it.
You're idiots, Britain. Thanks for the 6 G's, dude.
You know what feels better?
How much was 6 G's back then? That's like $80 million.
You know what? You know the only thing that feels better than like turning traitor on the people who are being dicks to you? Like, so they're being mean to you and you're like, whatever, I'm going to go join your enemy, right?
Right.
The only thing that feels better than that is as soon as you join the enemy, going back to the dicks and being like, yo, I just suckered him in. You like me now? Let's go.
Yeah.
Like if he double crossed the British, that's the play.
Yeah, I wouldn't even hate a triple cross there.
Then you're just working both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the game.
Arnold was especially eager for cash in May 1779 because he'd recently married. His new wife, the 19-year-old Peggy Shippen, had expensive habits. Marriage meant new wardrobes for both of them, new furniture, and a continuing round of parties. Pointing as well to her Tory family and friends, many speculated that it was Shippen's influence that pushed Arnold over the brink. The British headquarters papers contain no hard evidence that Peggy Shippen influenced Arnold, but they did establish that she knew of the treason and had participated in its planning. They always blame the girl, Jake.
Yeah, so is the girl British? Did I miss that part? Or does she just like the finer things in life?
Likes the finer things in life.
I was going to say, this reeked of Benedict Arnold being a hornball the whole time. Because I was running through my mind, what's this guy need all this money for? It's not like he's buying land or castles. I mean, I think he's buying whores.
Yeah, if you look at pictures, He was a handsome chap.
I mean, that doesn't stop people. We know some handsome hornballs.
That's what I'm saying. I think the more handsome you are, the
He
more...
is not handsome.
I think we're looking at older pictures of him here. That side drawing doesn't do any favors.
Side drawing, I get that's a bad angle. I mean, the front drawing's not doing too much for me. The one in the red coat, he looks okay.
What about the book, Patriot and Traitor book, where he's on the cover?
I think that's a bad look, dude. He looks like the Quaker oatmeal guy.
I think that was a good thing back then.
The Quaker oatmeal guy is kind of a sex symbol.
All right. So, so he's like, well, yeah, I got to join the British because I got to pay for my fucking wife's furniture. Can you blame me? Jeez. When the treason plot was discovered, however, with the capture of Andre, Arnold quickly ditched his wife. This was no time for chivalry. Arnold grabbed a boat and fled across the Hudson, leaving her behind. She was the problem. That's how you know that it was all for her. Like, listen, babe, you fucked me. I was trying to buy you that furniture. I did all this terrible shit, and now it's coming, and I just got to ditch you.
Yeah, I think in the movie version of this, like, you make Benedict Arnold the guy that's going, like, out of his way, doing everything he can to impress this girl, to get her to love him, and then he finally reaches his pinnacle and just snaps. Yeah,
because
I've gotten so much money. I've led armies. I've been a traitor to my country for you, and you're still not in this?
Yeah.
Like, we're done.
This is some bullshit. So he ditched her. He just left her behind. George Washington then paid her a visit. He found her hysterical and concluded she'd know nothing about her husband's treachery. Oh, she faked out George Washington.
Jesus.
George Washington fell for the cry scheme. Wow, what? Why is George Washington dealing with this? He's the general of the army in the Revolutionary War. I guess, I mean, if you want it to go up top, if it was this big of a deal, but seems like some underling should have been in charge of this while George was planning the next invasion or attack.
Yeah, you deal with this crying woman while I deal with the war.
Was her hysteria merely a show for Washington, this Lady Macbeth's latest act of deceit? Or was Peggy Shippen Arnold genuinely terrified because she feared her role in the treason would be discovered? No one can be sure. Well, it's both. She feared her role would be discovered, so she fake cried.
Right.
As for Arnold himself, historians have continued to debate the particular mix of bitterness and greed that prompted him to turn traitor. These are not mutually exclusive motives. The British offered him both recognition and money. It's even possible that his love for Peggy was a factor in his decision. He didn't love her. He liked her status. That's my opinion.
He liked something else. That's my opinion.
Ooh. But there could no longer be any question that at the center of Arnold's treachery was his craving for money. Characteristically, one of Arnold's first actions after putting on a British uniform was to present Clinton with a bill for £10,000. 2 weeks after his co-conspirator Andre was executed as a British spy, Arnold again wrote Clinton insisting on the money. Clinton agreed to pay £6,000, which was Andre's final offer, plus £350 for expenses. For some, especially someone as rich as Arnold, this might have been the end of the story, but not for Benedict Arnold. More than 10 years later, with the revolution over and both Arnold and Clinton living in England, Arnold was still writing Clinton and still insisting on being paid. Dude, I'm so glad where this came to be.
Yeah.
I said at the beginning I was worried we were going to end this tale siding with Benedict Arnold. And after all the facts and stories and rumors and hearsay, I can officially say I don't like Benedict Arnold. And I think he was I think he was a pompous dick. Greedy, full of himself. You know, what's the term?
An asshole. He's an asshole.
Sociopath. Thought he could do no wrong.
Maybe. I'm thinking Benedict Arnold is the kind of guy that like knew he was doing wrong, but he knew he could get away with it.
I think he was a fast talker. We'd call him like a slick salesman these days.
I don't know. I think it's the opposite. I think it's like kind of almost like a stoic dick approach. Like he got to a certain point where he could be like, hey, I'm Benedict Arnold. Like I feel like he had the personality we wish George Washington had in this, where we're saying George Washington should be like, hey, I can't deal with you, sad woman, right now. No offense. I'm just battling a war right now. I have to deal with that. Like, I think Benedict Arnold does that, but in a jerk way. Like, can't deal with you, lady. Fighting a war. I'm Benedict Arnold. Catch you later. Yeah, and I think he was driven by the booty.
Ooh, 19-year-old?
Just tell me what else was he doing with his money? I'm not seeing too many like Benedict Arnold loved vacationing in the south of France or anything like that.
What do rich people do with their money? I think they just sit on it.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, what was Benedict Arnold doing with his money? By the way, $6,000 loosely translates to like almost $200K nowadays.
Oh, okay. So not 80 million.
But I think this was the time when there wasn't a middle class, so I still think that was like so much money.
Here's what it was. Benedict Arnold was a cocky, greedy guy who thought no matter what came his way, he knew how to play it. He had his play, right? And he had tons of different plays. And at the end of this, he played every hand he knew how to play, and he came up a big fucking loser. He had to run away to England, and he had to settle for a lesser amount of money than he wanted. And then without the war, he had no other place. Like, he was only good at making money during times of war. That's why 10 years later, he's still writing the British dude like, hey, remember that money I asked for? Yeah. You didn't promise me it, but I asked for it. Can I have that? So I think he couldn't make money in those 10 years in England. So this dude was profiting off the war.
Yeah, he was a good wartime businessman.
Yeah. Well,
he could lead a crew, and he could, kind of Ponzi scheme the town.
You always need a good wartime businessman.
Do we know? And this is kind of where I started, and I thought this is when it all became clear to me. Would we know Benedict Arnold today if he wasn't just generally an asshole?
I think it's how far up he was on Washington's trust that made him so known.
Right.
Like, Washington appointed him so high. One of the higher up people turned spy.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not even like the British. It doesn't seem like the British.
Maybe they at the time they made like a huge example of him.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like the British captured him and turned him like Stockholm Syndrome, or captured him and offered him anything. The dude just wrote letters to the British like, hey, I'm this guy. I want to be a spy. How did you trust letters back then?
And how was there not, like, why didn't George Washington say, like, hey, you don't have to pay this if you give us Benedict Arnold, Yeah,
I wonder why.
Like, why did he have such immunity after Britain lost the war?
Oh, that's an easy question now. Because the less they had to see of Benedict Arnold or hear his bullshit.
Right, they didn't want him back.
Yeah. They're like, we just had two major victories. One, we won the Revolutionary War. We are now free from you. 2, you're stuck with Benedict Arnold. That guy sucks.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's win-win.
Yeah, enjoy that, loser.
Loser.
There's a TV show on AMC. It's over now. It's called Turn, Washington Spies. If anyone listening is interested in revolutionary spies, it's pretty cool. Do you know Secaucus, New Jersey, Jake? It's
Secaucus, yeah.
That's where the American Patriot spy ring started, right there in Secaucus, in between New York and New Jersey.
Wow.
The river right there. It's called the Culper Ring.
Culper Ring.
Started by Benjamin Talmadge.
Benjamin Button.
Because it was Culpeper County. It's pretty cool. They all had like secret names and stuff. Samuel Culper Sr., Samuel Culper Jr. They had all the aliases. Spying's a weird game. Because
aliases.
Because you don't do as big of things as we think spies do. Like,
yeah, I mean, I kind of
like,
differ from you on that. I think it's one of those things, like, if we knew more stuff about what spies did, they'd be bad spies.
Yeah, but we know, like, in the history of spy stuff, like, we know some of the things.
That's what they've told you.
A lot of it was just passing notes about eavesdropping, writing down names and places, and passing it along.
That's what they want you to know, Jim.
We know some of it. They would. Some of the cool things they did in the Revolutionary War is they sewed notes into the seams of jackets, and then you would rip open the jacket and it would be in there.
That's good.
It's good, yeah. All right, that ends this episode on that fuckface Benedict Arnold. Hope you enjoyed it. If you are on Benedict Arnold's side, you're not allowed to listen to the next episode.
Ooh, banned. One game suspension.
1 game suspension. Why? You like Benedict Arnold. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Bad guy because he spied, and just his whole personality and being seems like it sucked.
Yeah, there's no part of it where you're like, okay, I mean, that's pretty good. Like, even the war stuff, you're like, that was good, but maybe someone else could have done it. It's nothing like, wow, he did that.
Yeah,
you know?
He ain't no Thomas Jackson.
No. Well, few are.
All right, thank you guys. We will see you next week on Laughs from the Past. Go rate, subscribe, review, leave a review, and send it to all your friends and say, hey, listen to this. We appreciate you.